Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I wanted to make this relatively quick video here today talking about this guy right here. Now for those who don't know, this is a Team Associated RC10L pan car. This is a very old vintage legendary RC car by Team Associated, produced probably somewhere in the 1980s or so. And I purchased this thing about 5 or 6 years ago now on eBay. Wasn't very much money, although I don't remember the exact amount. I'm going to say it was more than $50, but less than $100. And I purchased this thing largely because way back when I was a kid, first getting into RC cars and RC racing, Team Associated was considered the cream of the crop. They were the best of the best. And anyone who was serious about radio-controlled cars and certainly competing in radio-controlled competitions and races and that sort of stuff, all of them, that is to say all the top flight people, drove a Team Associated product. Unfortunately, of course, being young, I didn't really have the money to afford a Team Associated anything, really. So I tended to do what most people did, and that was to sort of stick with the more wallet-friendly priced offerings from companies like Tamiya and Kyosho. But I'd always wanted a Team Associated RC car, and knew that at one point in life I would definitely get one. So when the opportunity came up on eBay to pick this thing up, I kind of jumped on it. The RC10L, the pan car, is not something I'm overly familiar with, but it's a car that I always thought was very cool. Every time I would go into a hobby store, I always fell in love with what Team Associated was doing, and of course reading RC Car Magazine and various other radio-controlled publications. Team Associated always had some of the coolest ads. So like I said, I always wanted an RC10L, and when the opportunity came up, I picked it up. And this is the car that I picked up. Now, this is effectively exactly how it was shipped to me by the seller. It's a graphite chassis, graphite sort of, I guess, engine cage back here. It's got a Futaba steering servo. I believe this is an S148 steering servo. It does have sort of an additional bumper bar piece that sort of fits up in here. I guess you take this one off and you replace it with this one. I'm assuming this is used for, say, different body styles or different competition types or whatever the case, but this was included with the purchase when I got it. I also got this thing here, which I believe is some sort of a brace that sits back in here between the body mounts and the shock mount, the top shock mount. You know, again, I know very little about the pan car or any of these pan cars. This is sort of my first foray into RC10s and RC10Ls and pan cars and anything Team Associated for the most part. But you know, the reality is this is actually in really, really great shape. We can see the shock itself looks to be in really nice shape. It moves as you'd expect a shock to move. We can see the way the shock actually functions and works. This is a thin piece of fiberglass that flexes and allows sort of the entire rear suspension and an engine cage, I guess, to sort of move up and down. Looks like the drive shaft itself is graphite, along with most of the rest of the chassis. It has a drive or driven gear. It's directly bolted to the axle. Certainly these tires have seen better days. Take a look at all this cracking you can see. It's pretty bad. So these tires definitely won't be of much use to me. I will admit I have cleaned this up a little bit, just a little bit, ever since receiving it. But for the most part, like I said, the previous owner, let's take a look underneath. the previous owner has actually kept this thing in really, really nice condition. I don't see a whole lot of scratches or any sort of marks or gouges on the bottom side of this thing. So for all intents and purposes, I'm pretty safe to assume that I don't think this thing has ever seen any sort of outdoor use. If anything, this has all probably been indoor and on carpet, which is great to know, because that's really where the strength of these cars is. They're not really meant for pavement use. Of course, you can't use them on pavement if you set them up right. But yeah, so that's effectively what I've got here. I've also got one thing I forgot to mention. I've got these Nerf bars, which I actually got separate from the RC10L. I think I purchased these on eBay as well. And these Nerf bars, or Nerf plates, I guess, they fit on either side here and here of the chassis. There's two of them with their fasteners and all, and these are a genuine Team Associated products. And I believe these are used for specific bodies. If you've got, let's say, a very wide body that's on this thing, you would use these, I guess, as sort of bracing when the body is on the vehicle. The owner also included, very nicely, the previous owner included the instruction manual, which of course walks you through sort of the assembly and setup and how to put this thing together, as well as an RC10L catalog, which for all intents and purposes looks like it's just a parts list, and roughly what the price was for each part way back in the 80s or 90s or whenever this thing was built. So kind of cool, nostalgic sort of stuff, very, very nice stuff to have, and certainly the instruction manual is quite useful. I also have these parts as well, which I believe this is some sort of an engine mount that mounts probably on the outside of this or maybe on the inside. I'm sure the instruction manual will explain it to me. And this sort of plastic washer, which again, I'm not really sure what it's meant for, but I'm sure it's outlined in the instruction manual. So this is effectively the RC10L that I've got here in my possession. But the big reason why I'm making this video and why I'm posting it to YouTube is because I wanted to actually ask the YouTube community, the RC car and RC enthusiast community, what I should do with this thing. The truth of the matter is, like I said, I've had it for about 5, maybe 6 years now, and I've literally done nothing with it outside of some minor cleanup ever since it arrived. And frankly, I'm not really sure what I should be doing with this thing. Initially, when I got it, my intention was to actually put together a vintage, old school RC10L pan car. I should mention I do have a Lexan body for this. It's actually the old Nissan ZX Turbo or ZX Turbo IMSA prototype body. I don't have it here with me, otherwise I'd show it to you guys, but I do have that. I've also got another body which I picked up, which is a 4th generation Corvette ZR1 body that will also fit on here. But to be honest with you, I will probably end up going with the Nissan ZX Turbo body, because I think that's absolutely iconic shape with respect to this RC10L. I think it kind of deserves it. But coming back to my original question, what should I do with this thing? Like I said, originally my intention was to go full vintage with this thing and get myself a brushed motor, old school ESC, and just, run it the way it came, back in the 80s or 90s or whenever these things were at the top of their game, and just sort of, enjoy it that way, run NiCad batteries or, nickel metal hydride, put the ZX Turbo body on it, and just enjoy it the way it is, and obviously replace the foam rubber that's on these wheels, and just go on and have some fun with it. However, over the last little while, I've been contemplating maybe trying something a bit more modern and a bit more up to date. putting a full a brushless setup with modern LiPo batteries and maybe a much more modern ESC. Maybe replace the wheels themselves with maybe billet aluminum, possibly even look at modifying the front or rear suspension, and really just taking this thing to a completely different level, almost to a level that this car was never really designed to go to. And really just sort of maximize the vehicle's performance. Obviously, one option, the vintage option, will be a lot less money and probably a lot more fitting with respect to the vehicle's design and its original intent. But of course, the second option, which is to say the higher speed, brushless and top of the line, or higher quality or maybe more up-to-date components, would clearly offer a much faster, much higher performing vehicle. So I'm at a bit of a crossroads here. I'm not really sure what to do with this thing. Not looking to sell it. So anyone, before you comment, well, just sell it to me. Well, I'm not really looking to sell this thing. I really like this thing quite a bit. So I want to hold on to it. I'm really not looking to let it go. But I am trying to decide sort of what the next step should be. Everything I've talked about in the video here, from these little bits and pieces all the way through to the actual car itself, is effectively everything I have. So I'm almost starting from a clean sheet of paper. So if you were in my shoes, feel free to leave something in the comments below and let me know what you think I should do with this. And if we get enough comments and we get enough interest in this thing, who knows? Maybe I'll make it a small little series outlining and going through the steps of getting my hands on components and bits and pieces and putting them together. And as I said, you can see what I've got here. I'm not even sure what kind of radio to go with. What kind of controller should I be going with? If we're going to stick old school, are we looking at an old Futaba type Triggle pistol grip? Or, should we be looking at something a little bit more modern? Ultimately, help me put this thing together, guys. Tell me what you guys think I should be doing with this. So, where the comments are. Go ahead and feel free to add whatever you think this should be done. Thanks very much for watching. Take care.